Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ESS BIZTOOLS Black Friday Systemising Business Advisory Services presentation. My name's Peter Towers. I'm the Managing Director of ESS BIZTOOLS. And today I'm joined by Amanda Gascoigne. Amanda's a consultant, runs a business, Amanda Gascoigne Consulting. She's an experienced chartered accountant, and her speciality is smaller accounting firms and solo practitioners. How are you today, Amanda?
I'm great, thanks, Peter. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. This is webinar number 3 in our extravaganza, going through a whole range of issues relative to implementing business advisory services by accountants. And what we're going to talk about today is how these types of services can be implemented for smaller firms and solo practitioners.
That's right. That's what we're doing. Okay,
so we might get started. So I'll just share the screen so I can just get the everything moving. So the first thing we want to talk about, Amanda, is the Business Plus newsletter. We've been writing this for over 10 years. Every month except January, but we do 2 extra editions in May each year, normally on the federal budget. That got thrown out of whack last year, but the federal budget as it affects SMEs, and a end of year tax planning newsletter. The concept is that the newsletter is badged by our subscriber, their name, their address, their contact, and they can then send it to their client. I view it as being a marketing tool for accountants and our other subscribers, whether they're bookkeepers or business advisors or chief financial officers offering services to SMEs, because it allows them to communicate on some sort of idea with clients. And it's a business mentoring service for the clients who are receiving it. So how do you see newsletters and being utilised by clients?
Look, Peter, it's a question that does come up a lot, and I do get a lot of people thinking that these are a bit old school, and are they still relevant in today's environment? I would say they're definitely relevant, and I use them in my accounting practice. I sent out monthly newsletters religiously, and clients would really enjoy them. It was a way that I could leverage communication instead of talking to a lot of clients about the same thing. This was a way that I could actually distribute that information in a really leveraged way. It also was marketing, so I could talk about things coming up. It could be talking about business planning, tax planning. So it was as much about information as also what I was doing in my practice. You know, any anniversaries for clients and employees. It was a great way. And to this day now, having sold my practice of 18 years and now coaching small and solo accounting practices, I still do a newsletter. This at the moment though, and since I've started it, I'm actually doing it weekly.
Yes, and I've already read this morning.
Yes, and I can tell you that people love it. And if for some reason I don't send it, they might message me to make sure that they haven't dropped off my list. So I can tell you that, you know, I use them successfully in my practice, and I use them now. But I can also understand so many people are time poor. I love writing newsletters. I love imparting knowledge to all my clients and to my, affiliates and to my colleagues. But I know people are really time poor, and some people aren't. They don't feel creative, or they don't feel they have the time to do it. And that's where having a service with relevant information, topical, is so invaluable. So and to be honest, when I started with a subscription service. So it's definitely something that I don't think so old school, and it definitely has a place.
Yeah, thanks for that. And when we write Business Plus, I try to have 3 groups in mind. I've always written, everything in ESS BIZTOOLS is written with targeted clients. I picture who the client is that I'm trying to write for, a system or the accountant, if when we're writing materials. I've got the accountant in mind. And in some cases, I've had particular, a few years ago when there was a lot more emphasis on secretaries in firms, we had a few of them in mind. Will they understand what we're saying? I used to say to my assistant Jenny, will so-and-so understand this, because we'd worked with that lady, and some of the new technology was not quite her cup of tea, and making sure that people could follow and understand it was very important, because that's what we want. But we try to break it into 3 groups, having some articles there for people who are starting a business. And because that's very important, and a lot of our subscribing accountants have got people starting businesses. Having articles there for people who are more advanced, wanting to scale up, perhaps are seriously thinking about trying to raise capital, or so that's where some of the advanced budgeting and financial forecasts come into play, and obviously crowdsourced funding or early stage innovation company. But in the middle, which probably means 4 articles in addition, we normally have 6 to 7, we're trying to look at businesses that have probably been running for 2 to 3 years and are running into all sorts of other issues. So that's the way we plan it, and hopefully
I think it's fabulous. And it also, like, it does give that leverage communication. It also ensures that if someone wants you to talk about something more specific, then that goes out from that generalist view, and therefore it should be something that you can actually charge for. So this is the generic stuff that's going out, in the newsletter. If someone actually wants you to discuss things more, more completely and more specific to their needs, that's your key then to start charging for this stuff. Because I do know accountants are time poor. They haven't got time to write newsletters, but they also haven't got time to be actually having 20 conversations all of the same ilk with too many people. So yeah, it's great.
One of the other things, and I know accountants are time poor, but it doesn't really have to be their partner that's doing this. I think it's a good idea to read the newsletter before it goes out, and because it's going out with your firm name on it, and visualize which clients might be interested in which articles, and then make contact with them. It could be an email, it could be a text message, it could be a phone call that someone makes, and say, oh, Amanda was just wondering whether you've read that article on research and development, because you mentioned to us last time you were going to do research and development. And hopefully that creates the moment where the client says, yeah, I want to come and talk to you about, Amanda, about that, and see what we can do. Because that's generating that income connection then, isn't it? The client's then asking you to give them advice.
Definitely. And one thing that I know a lot of accountants don't like doing is selling their services and telling everyone what they can do. This is a great way to do it without feeling too salesy. So you've got that information out there, and then people say, oh, they do more than just a tax return, or they do more than this. And that goes for clients, potential clients, and also like those colleagues. So, I used to send those newsletters. And in fact, this morning, I actually got an email from my old banker that subscribes to my Five and the Fly email to say great email. So he's still getting that. But put your bankers on there, your referral banking people, your solicitors, your financial planners, your insurance, and they get to also know a little bit more about you, because you may be meeting them at networking events, but you can only say so much. And then that's actually really going to build your brand with more people as well.
Okay. And just incidentally, some of our subscribers I know do still write their own. They still subscribe to our product, though. They do a bit of cut and paste.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We're happy with that. I know one firm actually subscribes to 2 or 3 newsletters, they tell me, and they do the cut and paste. That's okay.
And that's exactly what I used to do to start off with, exactly. And just, things that we know that were relevant. If there was something like, so if you have clients that they might not be interested in, research and development, we'll maybe take that bit out and then put something of your own in there, to put your own flavour in there. And that's what I think with anything that's standardised, I think there's a great opportunity to use this, but then putting your own flavour over the top of it.
Okay. Righto. Well, Amanda, we might move on if we can. Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
And the next area I want to discuss today is business health checks. Within ESS BIZTOOLS, we have at this stage 5 business health checks services that are included. And therefore, clothing retailers, commercialised building industry, pharmacies, road transport services, and supermarkets. We're going to expand it by 2 or 3 next year. This is an attempt to merge some of the benchmarking type information that you can get from benchmarking.com if you're subscribing to it, but also some good old-fashioned key performance indicators. Because one of the challenges I see that accountants have got in all this, Amanda, is having a clear understanding of what's going on in the business. You're not just looking at profit and loss account, balance sheets and tax returns. Now we've got to dig down and see what's happening. And key performance indicators are vital in the day-to-day business operating. Some of them might be getting recorded every hour, especially in retail environments. Some of them are getting recorded daily, of course, and then weekly. And it's then the analysis of them, because what management's looking for is variations.
Variation of trends. And, you know, as Peter Drucker said, what gets measured gets managed. And that is very, very true. Again, that's a really old, you know, an old quote, but it still rings true today.
Yes. And so we have those benchmarking health check reports, which you can probably, as the accountant, facilitate the establishment of. And a lot of these things lead on. We're trying to create a system, and the system really should be, I think the aim, you won't get it with every client, and you won't get it all in the first year, but should be to try to get them to have regular business review meetings. Some people say start with quarterly. I try to start with monthly, but quarterly or monthly, and having statistical reports like a business health check helps get everyone around the table involved, I've noticed, because they can understand it. They know what their KPIs are, but sometimes they haven't really analysed them and answered the question that starts coming to them from the CEO once they sit and look at this. Well, we were doing it in 28 minutes last month, but it's taken us 39 this month. Why? And that's the type of question that management likes to ask. And the people around the table, whoever's responsible for that process, should know that answer.
Yeah. And I also think, you know, as accountants, we're across a lot of industries. We obviously, you know, work to the Tax Act, but, you know, sometimes even as accountants, we don't know what certain industries, what is a benchmark for them. So by having this tool, that you do get to know that, so we can actually talk in a language that resonates with the clients. So I think from that, first and foremost, is that information, like what KPIs are you suggesting for these particular industries, their drivers. So that's what you can be talking about. So, you know, what are the drivers, how you can, you know, increase performance, you know, get better turnaround times, all of that. So definitely, and I've just, while you were talking, Peter, have jotted down 5 different ways that I think that health check could be used. So like you said, this, you know, you might not use everything altogether, and there might be varied uses for some of these tools. So we need to be thinking outside the square. So the first one would be, if someone's looking at starting a business, you know, they often, this is all foreign language to them. So instead of actually going through the P&L balance sheet, what it's supposed to look like, because we haven't even got figures then, starting off with, this is the types of things when we're doing a budget for you, and this is the things that you can be looking at from day one. If you're buying a business, someone's buying a business, having a look to see using some of these health checks as a due diligence type tool. Thirdly, a business analysis report, which is what we used to include with every set of financial statements that went out the door. And the very first thing that we had, a KPI, and we actually used the ATO small business benchmark, which is quite, it's, you know, it's usually a couple of years old, but that's the sort of thing that the ATO are using. But it's just something that we can look at. Is the driver cost of goods sold? Is it rent? Is it motor vehicle expenses? Like, what are the biggest expenses? So we would have that, which started that conversation. And then the last 2 that I've put down is validation of client data. So a lot of clients that aren't using software, they're bringing their stuff in, maybe it's still in Excel spreadsheets. Can we be absolutely sure, and even in cloud accounting, can we be absolutely sure all income and all expenses are getting put into those files? Are all bank accounts having bank feeds coming through? And by looking at a business health check or a KPI, we can see if there's emissions.
Mm.
And then leading on from that is we want to look at these emissions before we lodge a tax return, so we don't have the ATO come chasing us, because they do look at KPIs.
Mm.
So there's just 5 things that I've just written down as
very
you were
good.
talking. So it can be very, used across so many areas of your practice.
And that's why we've included business health checks in our system. These 5 industries actually come from an accounting firm. I was doing a review with them. Mark Holton was there actually that day. And we were working through with them, and we said, well, what are your 5 key industries in your clientele? So they had some debate. Took them about half an hour and a cup of coffee in between, but that's what they come up with, and we developed them around those, because I was working every couple of weeks with that firm. So we're going to add to that, but and we are including in the material some of the areas without quoting the figures, because that's breaking the copyright confidentiality on benchmarking.com's information. But I think accountants should be subscribing to a benchmarking service. And the one that I've always used is benchmarking.com. It was originally FMRC.
I was a subscriber to that.
That's going back a bit. We're showing our age now.
Yes, we certainly are.
I've just had Andrew get us on the conversation before, but Ian Brown, who was one of the directors at FMRC, did a great job on that product and ultimately sold it. And I heard the business has been sold again recently, so I haven't caught up with the new owners yet. But they're a great source of benchmarking. We're just referring to some of the figures that can be extracted, and then there's others that businesses need to have.
Yeah, so there's some validation type things that I've used this for. And then obviously, if you just wanted to do that full business health check, which, could be, it's quite lucrative. And I think coming out of COVID, people are looking at, what are those metrics? What do they need to be doing? This is actually a saleable service that you don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's already there for you to do.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, well, we might move on then if we can. And let me just get my slides back up. And we've talked about all that. They're the industries that we refer to. Buying a business. There's always people wanting to buy and sell businesses, isn't there? And so we have a procedure control form which creates the system in this process. We've got 21 business advisory services forms. And what I'm showing on the screen now is some of the headings there. Buying a business, due diligence in a non-company, due diligence in a company is very important. If I never used to like clients buying shares in companies, but it's become far more widespread now as we have crowdsourced funding, equity raising companies, and various Section 708 companies. You need to be able to do due diligence as accountants to make sure everything's what it's saying it is. When you're advising someone on buying shares or buying the business, don't you, Amanda?
Absolutely. And I've actually used, unfortunately, I wasn't a subscriber of ESS BIZTOOL when I used this, but I had a very similar, I created a document for buying a business, and I would send that out to someone before even they had that appointment, because, how many times do we have clients ring us and ask us, we're looking at buying a business, or can we come in for an appointment? So you sit there and you're going through so much with them. I would use that thing that you had on the bottom, the 4th one, to send out. And I'm sure you've got some areas that we could actually, maybe in a bridge version, that you could send that out to the client before they come in for that meeting. Because that meeting you're just giving them generic information. Often you don't want to charge for it, but that's an hour or 2 of your time. I have sent that little letter out, a little report out to them. And I've had a few people come back and say, look, it is all too difficult. We've decided we're not going to go ahead. Now, that document saved me a lot of time. However, if the people did go to proceed, they realised there was a lot involved. We had to consider a lot about structures, a lot behind the scenes, and therefore they were prepared to pay for my time. And I think that's one of the common mistakes a lot of people, practice owners, are making, because they're rushed. The clients are demanding, they want to come in and see them to talk about this. Whereas that system, having a system that you do this first, then that, and having those tools behind you makes it so much easier.
Yeah, and another thing that I'd suggest they do with that, so we send the questionnaire to them and say this is the information you need to assemble, and sure, it might scare some of them off, but that probably saved them going broke, because unfortunately a high percentage don't last that first 2 to 3 years, and so I think it's one of the great services that you can be offering to do that. There was something else.
Do you think, Peter, that sometimes people might, I'm a lover of questionnaires as well, but I have a lot of people that are worried about sending questionnaires out to their clients, because their clients will think, well, if I'm going to fill out a questionnaire, I may as well do all this stuff myself because I can do it on the internet. I totally disagree with that frame of thought, because I think if you have a client that's prepared to fill in a questionnaire, is invested in the process from day one, they will become a much better client, that you're not actually there just to solve all their problems. It's actually a two-way street. And I think you can set that relationship up very well by sending that questionnaire out. But I'm seeing a lot of people not doing it because maybe they've had some opposition or some objections, but I think all of that pre-work type stuff is invaluable to ensure that we've got all the information to even make the best, give the best advice.
Yeah, the clients coming to, when they're sitting in front of you, you're charging them, I don't know, $200 to $350 an hour, depending on your area and what you charge. I think it's very desirable that you've got all the information. So you've sent them a list first, say, this is what I'm going to need from you. You get all that assembled, and get them to start thinking about it. Questions like, well, you're going to buy I don't know, a corner store that trades from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Is this going to suit your family? No, does the trading hours, the question will say, does the trading hours in your proposed business suit your family? And it might start people saying, geez, if I'm going to start at 6 a.m., I've got to be out of bed at 4:30 a.m. I've got to be there by 5 a.m. Because I drive, when I go to the gym of a morning, I go past a corner store that opens at 6 a.m. Now, he's always there at 5:30 a.m. Because the light's on and he's obviously getting the place set up. He might have even been a bit earlier, just that I only get there at 5:30 a.m. It's a long day, and that business trades to 8 p.m. That's, I don't think he's there. Well, I hope he's not there or on his own a whole day, but people have got to think about this.
And without the questionnaire, I think that very first meeting go completely different. So that, you get into that first appointment where you should be charging you $250, $350 an hour, yet all you've done is sat across from someone telling them that to give more advice, you're going to need this, you're going to need that, they're going to have to go away and do that. So you don't charge for that hour. And then the clients really have left thinking, well, that was a waste of time. Well, of course it was, because we don't have the information. So that's why that process is so very valuable and something that they need to be thinking about.
And another thing I think we can use today, because I've been working with a consultant who does it all the time to me. He sends me a 2 or 3 minute video. And I think we can, as accountants, we should be doing that a lot more with our clients. So someone contacts you, you send them, you do a short video on Zoom, send it out to them, and give them the link so they can get hold of it. And say, I've sent you some questions to answer. Now, this is the reason I want that. So you can just give that personal explanation face to face with them. They can see you as you explain it. I think it works.
I do, and I've had quite a few people do that, recently, and I've used it as well. So anyone can be using it on Zoom or Loom. So there's two different software that you can use to utilize that, and becoming very, very popular. And that's the way more people actually learn, even if you're doing an instructional video or how to even start filling out something. The Loom is great, because how do most people learn these days? They'll jump onto YouTube or they'll jump onto the internet. They're very, very, I guess, familiar with that visual type learning. So yeah, definitely I'd agree with that, Peter.
Okay, so buying a business is a package. It's set out, it's systematic, it's listing all the steps. Some might apply. Obviously, you're not going to use a due diligence for companies if you're not buying the shares in a company. You just work through the ones that apply to your client. And at the end of it, there's a template of a report. So this is the report you then write to go back to the client.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so
I think with that, I think a lot of accountants don't charge appropriately for these sort of things as well, Peter. So perhaps because they've sort of done it on the run, they've only got a very small, a little small report they've just quickly done. They don't feel like charging as much. But if you've got a larger report, a more comprehensive report, and you have covered off on a lot more things, that actually gives you the ability to charge more. And even if that client doesn't go ahead with the business because you've done the due diligence and you've worked out it's not a very good business, so I hear so many people saying, well, they're not even going to charge, we didn't go ahead. Look, I have done that in the past, and I've charged a couple of $1,000s. And, yes, the clients weren't that happy at the time, but I said to you, I've saved you investing $1 million in this particular business. $2,000 is a cheap price to pay for me to tell you, keep your money.
Yep.
So it's the way you look at things.
And I think part of this process of delivering business advisory services is we all become a lot more aware of what we're going to charge for a job. Now, sometimes you might lose, but I think it's far better to say to a client, okay, for this preliminary review of this business, the fee will be around $2,000 or $3,000, whatever, so that if there's a reaction, they think they're going to get it for 200. Well, you sort that out very quickly.
Absolutely.
And they're not a surprise. And I'd put that in writing. I think we got to. Now you might lose. It might have, the fee perhaps should have been 3,000, but you've already quoted 2,000. You got to live with that, because there's going to be some you charge 2,000, you only get $1,000 worth of work.
Yes. And but actually putting that's exactly what that's initial. So the buying business document, I actually had all there in the cost of me doing certain things, the cost of a report, the cost of even setting up a couple of different types of structures. It was all in there laid out. So it's having that stuff up front. There's no surprises.
Yes, people should understand what all this is going to cost. There's always extra costs in starting a business. Amanda, I now want to move on to Sme Debt System. Australia's got a bad record on debtors with SMEs. There was a worldwide review a couple of years or 3 years ago, which assessed that Australia had the longest debtors days outstanding in the world. That inspired me to really write this SME debtors manual. So within the ESS system, we have a procedure control form, of course, to make sure we got the system right. And then a whole range of forms so that, I'll go to the next one, so that the SME debtors manual template that we've got can be customized to suit a particular client. So what an accountant's able to produce is a complete transcript of the debtor system that's going to apply to a particular client.
Yeah, because cash flow is is a big issue for many businesses. And in my newsletter this week, Peter, I talked about collecting cash from clients, because it is actually it's very important, especially this time of year with Christmas. And if people are going into business initially, they may not actually understand that there is that lag time. They do need to be chasing that. And I know there's a lot of accountants out there with very high debtor balances because they don't want to offend their clients. But we need to be looking at this. It's imperative.
Yes, and I feel a bit sorry for the person in most commercial organisations, SME organisations, who's got the job of looking after the debtors. Most of them have not been trained. And when you ask them what's their system, you see it's bits of notes stuck on computers or some sort of handwritten note that's been handed down by someone else that did the job. I think what we're trying to get at here is have a proper booklet, and that's what our system has. A booklet has the name of the client on it, the name of the accountant, and it's been customized. So if they call a particular form the red form or the green form, as I struck many years ago when I was doing an audit, and no one knew where the cash receipt book was because it was called the green form. And I walked around that office for 2 hours asking for the cash receipt book. My audit program said check the cash receipt book for certain things. No one had bothered to put in there it's called the green form. So I made sure that I amended it. But so it's, if a client's got those personal sort of terminologies, customize. You can customize it to suit theirs. And I'm hopeful that, and what I found in actual practice is the person looking after debtors has got a lot more pride in their job now. They know something, you know, there's a system that tells them how to do it.
Yeah, and one thing that I have, you know, uncovered with a few clients, that they thought their admin manager was chasing these, and it turns out things hadn't got chased. And a lot of it is because they feel uncomfortable, and also they don't have a system. But if you have a system, it does work. So I also believe that spasmodically chasing debtors when you need to because cash is low is also sending the wrong message. So I can remember the place that I actually worked at before I started my practice, every week on a Tuesday, we used to have someone coming from our Newcastle office. All her job was to do debtors. So every Tuesday she came, she went through the debtors list and she would ring everyone. Now that was sending a really strong message to those clients that if they, you know, didn't pay by next week, they were going to get another call from Bev next week. So I think that regularity is actually makes a lot of sense. And I don't think when everyone's busy, sometimes that doesn't actually happen. So having that system and doing things religiously, even sending reminders, Peter, now with the accounting software, there's an ability for reminders, just even reminders to be sent automatically. And the amount of people not actually flicking that on because they're worried about sending a statement to their clients and what are the clients going to say is astounding. But, you know, we're in business, we've delivered a service, we should be getting paid for it within our terms. That's
right. And I agree with you on that. Amanda, let's go to the next one then we want to discuss, and that's the survival in difficult times. I originally wrote this probably 10 years ago. I started writing survival in difficult times. It was after a cyclone in Western Australia, I think, and someone rang me and said, a lot of businesses have been wrecked over here. Can you give us something for it? So we wrote this product that's built around 42 questionnaires on a whole range of things, and some of them are on the screen now. And we then developed a series of explanatory articles that feed into it, so that if you're talking to a client and they want to know more about wastage and shrinkage, that you've got some explanation as to what they can do about wastage and shrinkage. So what do you, have you had a chance to use that product at all? Or
I haven't had a chance to use that, but it is actually, you know, it's very easy to be then pulling something out, because these aren't the things that we will be encountering every single day. You know, as we talk a lot about the Tax Act, we talk about, you know, so many things that we've got a lot of knowledge at, but a lot of this I don't believe people are looking at on a regular basis. So having something standardized is easy just to be able to pull out and send off, and a conversation starter. So this could be, again, sent out as an individual, free sort of service, and then if they want specific information, they then come and pay for that. So then you might be able to actually get a job out of some of this stuff.
Yeah, and part of the information could be inserted by the client if they've got someone there capable of doing it, but it's really analysing the business. You know, 42 questionnaires is a lot of questionnaires. It covers, as you saw by a bit of it that I just showed on the screen, it covers a lot of aspects of the business, and the commentary is giving them suggestions as to how they can improve gross profit percentages, or how the debtors management can be conducted, or so on, which is enabling you to give them the answer.
Yeah, and speaking another, I'm always looking at different ways you could use these tools, not just for one way, and perhaps not the way that was originally, you know, thought of, but like even pulling out a couple of those questions to pop in a newsletter.
Oh yeah, yeah.
To give people an idea. Social media. Some of my best lot of social media posts are when I'm posing a question and getting people to respond, or even if they don't respond, their brain starts ticking and thinking, oh, okay, I've never thought of looking at that. I've never thought of calculating that. Or maybe that's what the issue is. Maybe I need to come in and, you know, and get some more help in that. So, you know, maybe it's not just giving the whole questionnaire. It could be just pieces of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. because
staff training as well, Peter. That could be a great thing to educate our staff on these areas.
And we've called it survival in difficult times. I've decided to leave it at that because around Australia, and we're now in the time of the year, aren't we? And it's already happening. We've got floods. Well, unfortunately, there will be bushfires somewhere again. I hope the drought's broken. It looks like it was some of that wonderful rain that's going down the middle of Australia. That's out in the bush. That's great. And cyclones will be around again. They're telling us they're talking about 13 or 14 this year. So there's going to be some areas that unfortunately are affected by natural disasters. And I find around Australia, every year or so, there are pockets in certain locations that are also affected. A major business closed down. It might be a coal mine. It might be some sort of manufacturer. And it affects a lot of spin-off businesses, doesn't it? So there's, I think from an accountant's point of view, you're always going to have some clients who are having difficulty in surviving in their business.
Yeah. And then again, flipping it around, how could we actually use some of these things to help people future-proof? So a future-proofing series of things that people could be flipping at. On the positive side, these are some things that you can do to avoid this or this.
Okay.
Or it could even be, you know, like what are some of the risk management, you know, using it as a risk management tool as well.
There's a whole lot of, and this is the sort of work, what you and I are trying to be saying to our accounting colleagues. There's a lot of work you can do on these activities with your clients. And it's a matter of coming to grips with an understanding of them and then being prepared to talk about them and promote them.
Yeah. And from a return on investment point of view, you know, we've talked about so many different applications of how they can use these tools. So, you know, there is, you know, if you get in there, use the tools, you know, talk to the peers that are in there, because I know there's a lot of support that Peter and your team and also the people, you know, your members are actually supporting each other. I think that, you know, it's enormous, you know, valuable resource that can be a really, you know, give a significant return on investment if you get in there and use it. So it means you've got to make the time, and you've got to be thinking outside the square. How can we use this? And even if you're only using a very small percentage of it to start with, you're still going to be, you know, come out in front.
Yes, that's right. I like people to at least cover what they're paying us as a subscription and more. But quite honestly, firms should be, even a very small firm, I think, should be able to earn $50,000 a year out of business advisory consulting services.
Absolutely.
That's only $1,000 a week.
Yes.
Okay, working weeks maybe a little bit more, 1,200 in say in 45 weeks of the year. You should be able to achieve that. I think a firm's target should be up over $100,000 at least. It's a matter of sitting down, going through your client list, identifying who the clients are, that you can offer some of the services that we're discussing today, and then making contact with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I recently facilitated 4 sessions with chartered accountants, and we were talking about business advisory services. And I actually interviewed at the end of those 4 sessions, 4 different practice owners. And I sort of asked them, what sort of percentage of compliance versus advisory are they doing? And most of them were doing 50-50. So I'd love everyone to be thinking about, if you were able to have a client, your fees, 50% advisory, 50% compliance, what would it look like? What would your stress levels look like? Because potentially it's halving your client base because you're giving them additional services. So, you know, that's an opportunity for you to reset that client base, get rid of some people that are maybe too needy, that are actually costing you money, and then spending that time that you can actually, you know, deliver really great advisory services. You've got those clients then for life, and you've got a really nice, lot of offerings.
Okay, thank you. And we'll just move in if we can. So Amanda, I just now want to move into, we've gone through all that. It's Black Friday, and we've got a 50% discount on to celebrate the end of lockdowns at long last. That 50% discounts on every product in ESS. The headline act, though, is our advanced package, $3,250, including GST, and the starter package, which is ideal for small and solo practitioners.
Absolutely.
$999 will get you started. So they're available. Please go to our website, www.ESSBizTools. These specials are available until Monday, the 6th of December. And we look forward to people making contact. Now, then we got some special offers from our affiliates. Amanda, the first one's yours. You want to take us through that?
Yeah, sure. So I'm happy to offer the first 10 firms that subscribe to ESS BizTools a complimentary 45-minute session, a coaching session, and how we can perhaps talk about some of these things that we've talked about today, and how you can get some really quick wins with using the resources. So you'll have a chance to have had a look at the whole suite of offerings. Think about how you can apply some of those to your client base, and I'll be able to give you some handy ways and how we can actually implement them, and how you can actually set yourself up for success in 2022.
Okay, thank you very much, Amanda. Also, we have offers from Beyond Accounting Technologies, Paul Barnaby, who's our next presenter in our next webinar starting in about 18 minutes. Paul will do a review of your setup for budgets and cash flow forecasts. Normally he charges $6.95 for that for the first 20 acceptors. He's prepared to do that for free. Cloud9 Associates are offering a discount of $214 on a payment if you complete their review on a CPD product, CPD hours at a discount. Mark Holton is from Smith Inc. is offering a special discount price for their Young Gun Conference that's been postponed for 2 years because of COVID. It's on the Gold Coast on 21-22 February. This is a great activity for you to send your younger accountants to give them the opportunity to grasp some of these broader skills that they're going to need, and their communication skills. Jordan Lowry, who is our consultant on human resources and workplace health and safety, has a special product on offer for $399. And Brad Smart, who is a communications expert, will write an article or a blog or whatever you want him to write for the first 10 firms to get you into an appreciation of how you can promote and market your accounting firm through communicating better with your clients and your prospects. So we do thank those people for that support, and obviously we've got Amanda here today to thank. That's our contact details. So Amanda, thank you very much for being with us today, and
You're welcome, Peter.
for your support. And I look forward to talking to you next time we have one of these conversations.
Sounds great, Peter, and good luck, everyone.
Yeah, so if you wish to join us for the next webinar starting in about 16 minutes, you're most welcome. You do need to register on our website, www.essbiztools.com.au. But if you're watching, you already know that, don't you? So thank you, and we'll see you all later on. And if you have any questions, please send me an email. Thanks, Amanda.
Thanks, Peter.
Okay, thank
bye.
you. Bye.